Who's been your fantasy MVP? Who's hurt you the most this year? And who do you think needs to make a change, good or bad, in September to alter your opinion of them heading into the offseason in Dynasty Fantasy Baseball? It's time for Dingers!
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats. What's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement. Check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see. What's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head. Please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers. Ain't no minor league. This is major. Yeah, Dingers. Let's go.
Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It is just Marcus Semien that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out, we're delivering tips and strategies to help you live that straight up OG lifestyle. Tyler Childs joined again by Robbie Baseball from the Murder Room. What's happening, Robbie? How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. I'm good. I wanted to make sure. So when people are joining us right now, if you want to tell us below who was your fantasy MVP or who has been to this point, please do. You can find us at Dingers Pod. We are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitter. You can see through here. So yeah, comment below who has been your MVP. And if you have somebody that you think needs a huge September, you can do that too. And if you're listening on your podcast feed, thank you as always. We greatly appreciate you fine folks. But Ty, I'm good. I'm excited. Back working in the kitchen, and doing my boat stuff on the side, and life is good. Life is grand. How about you?
I'm good. I got my ass handed to me in our club championship of golf this weekend, as we were discussing offline. So I'm still recovering. Ego a little bruised, but it'll come back around. It's just a game, as they say.
Well, you do have fantasy baseball playoffs on the horizon here, and some leagues have started already. I know in one 30-team points league, we had our wild card week this past week, and one guy forgot to set his lineup for the second half of the week. So right there you go. You work hard all year with your team, and then you go ahead and forget to have it. It wasn't anything related to any storms or anything like that in the States. In the other, they are underway. And then for us, our home league tie starts tomorrow. And it looks like I'm going to finish third, which is some money for me. And I'm excited for some money, considering half my roster has either been, what has Bauer been on administrative lead, for weeks, or like Acuna, just been injured rest of the season. And Patrick Sandoval, good time to say it's been great, Patrick Sandoval. I hope everyone forgets about you, and I can still scoop you up this offseason.
It's not like he hasn't overachieved all season anyway, but let's not go there right now.
Yeah, now's not the time. Before we do that,
I am super excited, though, for the home league. As I said, I get to play my brother in the first round, and there's nothing better than beating my brother out of the playoffs. So I'm very, very much looking forward to doing that. And when I do that, I will tip one back in celebration.
A long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle.
Boom. Well, I know yours was a bottle and mine was a can. So I'm Miller because I just haven't been drinking much. So I've got a whole bunch of Miller Lights, and I'm going to enjoy that tonight while we discuss.
I'm switching back to Buffalo Trace this evening. So gonna head off of the favorites into the one that mostly everybody else likes. Buffalo Trace is a favorite of many. We do have a couple quick comments coming as usual. Rockstar comments from Ronnie. Hello, it's me. Yeah. So thanks, Ronnie. Very strong contribution. So we appreciate
dynamite drop in money.
Yeah. So we really appreciate that. But I'm looking forward to talking about some of these guys that we've celebrated this season. Some of the guys that you and I liked and had some benefit from, but also just some industry guys that took off, and then a couple that we're going to touch on that need to deliver down the stretch here, whether it's to get paid in the offseason or whether it's to establish them or to stay relevant in some cases. So this is a good list. I'm looking forward to talking about it because a lot of these guys are relatively well known, and we don't often talk too much about the superstars. We like to dig deep for our fans there, right?
Which is fun because, you know, win or lose in fantasy baseball, the smaller the league, the less critical the up and comers are, the less critical the flash in the pans are. It's important to hit the guys when they're breaking out, but you can also just let, 5 out of 6 pass you by without any thought at all, because, for every Patrick Wisdom, for every, Patrick Sandoval, for every guy named Patrick who does something good, there's going to be a guy named Jose who can be, bad, and you pick him up instead, unless it's Jose Suarez, who's not on this list, but complete game last night, Ty. Very impressive. I hope everyone remembers Jose Suarez. We put the tweet out earlier this week, right, Ty? You listen to us, you find the names before the rest of the world.
That's
does.
right. He's coming around. And as I said, after he pitched against Toronto, it's the first time I've sat down this season and watched him, and there's been some adjustments. So I'm moving him on my board as well, which is good. So I'm excited. I really am. I do want to make note, though, that there was a Frank Schwindel pickup in our small home league.
Yeah, they're 14-teamer.
Yeah, I thought
I couldn't believe it. I laughed.
I also laughed knowing that you were probably laughing at the same time. So I enjoyed that.
And I'm playing the guy that picked him up, Hines, and I'm beating him as well. But I laugh because I'm like, holy crap, like, a player has come along. When we talk about them as a peripheral piece once upon a time, I think it was 2019 that Schwindel was on the Royals opening day roster, because that's when Salvi got hurt, and up in very brief period of time, then sent back down, and hadn't heard from him again, right? All of a sudden he's in the Cubs organization. There's playing time. Guy is just mashing and running away with first base. Looks like Wisdom's the third baseman now. Left field possibility as well for him in the future, but looks like Frank Schwindel, former catcher, could now be in line as long as the Cubbies don't do one of those sign of Freddie Galvis type guy in the offseason, but as a first baseman, that could be Frank Schwindel as a drafted guy who's going to get talked a lot about this offseason. He does need to continue, or not, I shouldn't say continue. He does need to have a fine September, not drop off. But you can, we talked about this before too, Ty. Like, you look at all the teams that are far and away from playoffs. What are they going to do this month? They're going to expose players in their organization that they wonder about. They're not going to give all the top prospects that they're dreaming on. They're going to give the 40-man roster spots to guys who they think might be able to show them something today that can lean them one way or the other for 2022.
Well, and a strong vanity metric there for Frank, potential team name guy, picked up just for team name Schwindler's list. Definitely could be there next season, right? Like that's a strong name. So, so we could see that one. But let's get into our list here, Robbie. There's some fun guys here to talk about. We will definitely bounce off of it. If my voice does crack like puberty style, it's because I yelled really loudly from the Rogers Center on Friday night.
Yeah, you went to a game, and a good game.
It was a great game. It was a great game. And it was funny. So I got a bunch of high fives because right before the Lourdes Grand Slam, it was an obvious first pitch fastball scenario. So I said very loudly, and my wife actually hit me because I said it really loud. I said, swing at the fastball right now. And I said it really loud because I was frustrated. I was more frustrated at Charlie Montoya, but that's a whole rant for another day.
That we need somebody who's got a Blue Jays specific podcast to have us on, and then just like they do their show intro, and then they stop and we go. Because
it was awesome.
It was
awesome because then they threw the first pitch fastball, and then it went out of the ballpark, which was fantastic.
And that should have been your moment, not Lourdes.
Well, but to be fair, I also called it on the Mark Canha home run, like the next inning later when Jordan Romano served one up going to him. I'm like, and here's the same situation for Canha. Boom.
Well, let's not talk about that Blue Jays bullpen because I think it's doing nothing but losing games, losing seasons, ending fantasy seasons.
Nate Pearson was lights out in the ninth today. That's by far the best I've seen Nate Pearson at any moment at the major league level. He was like electric. He had the curveball working. First time I have been impressed by Nate Pearson ever, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been a rough week. The Jays DFA'd Hand. I don't remember who it was on this podcast that said they thought that Washington should have included a second relief pitcher because you just didn't know what to expect. And I mean, the Jays got a real hand job out of it, a bad hand job. That's where we're going to leave that. But we'll start off the list that we wrote down because we could just we don't even need a list. We could just talk about guys that have come up. But for you on your fantasy teams, before we break down the exact list, let's say, if you had to pick 2 or 3 guys who have been MVPs on your teams, so whether that's the team that you are heading into the playoffs with in our home league, whether that's in our big money auction league where you were hanging in until just too many injuries stacked up against you, or in one of the other leagues that we're in together, who have been some guys on those teams for you that you're like, man, like this guy has just pulled his weight on my team. He's my team MVP.
Yeah, Matty Olson for sure in our big money league was, definitely a good move because I traded Vladdy for him and a lot of criticism from that trade, but I turned that trade into a lot of assets by the time I traded Yu Darvish at the trade deadline because he was also in that package. So it also gives me a ton of roster flexibility moving forward. But Matt Olson has been just as good. Like obviously not Vladdy, but I knew that when I was trading him because I needed the other assets I got back with Olson. So that one for sure for me. Manny Machado always there. He's just always there, and he's on our list. So I will touch on him a little bit later. Frankie Matas honestly is a guy that very underappreciated for what he's delivered. He's been as good as anybody since July 1, right? He's behind only Robbie Ray in AL ERA since July 1. But even when he was having a rough start to this year, he was still pounding strikeouts, right? So even though he did have a rough start, I'm going to throw him there because he still provided value even when he wasn't. And that's because of the way my roster was built this season in the leagues that I had him, really leaned on the offensive side. So to get strikeouts as a category, that really paid dividends for me. Based on my roster construction. So that's why I say that one. I mean, Tatis is just obviously really good game per game. Hard to ignore that. But I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. My team has had ups and downs, right? I have guys like Mancini that have been really good in the first half, but were really bad up until about 4 days ago. So I have a bunch of guys like that have had half a season that I wouldn't throw MVP tags around on. So I think that's it. Like Goldie has been really good again this year, and I own him in several leagues. Stole 10 bases. He's back in double digits, which was the one thing that everybody's like, oh, Goldie's over the hill. He doesn't steal bases anymore. So that's for all you guys that gave up on him too early. That's kind of my list, to be honest, because I've not had the luckiest year pitching wise. I've had a epic amount of season-ending injuries in all leagues. So, not the ones that have been like 2 or 3 weeks or a month. I've had the season enders pretty much everywhere. So that's been tough to swallow, but we manage and we battle and we keep going.
Yeah. I mean, in our home league specifically, I thought my season ended twice, and, it was within the Trevor Bauer and Acuna stage. And then there was also Cevalle and I think 2 or 3 other guys that all went down within a 7-day period for me. And I thought, well, that's the heart of my team. And in that league, we can make no more than 40 waiver wire pickups the entire season into the playoffs. So I knew I couldn't just go ahead and, dump guys and try to make a big change. So I had to do it over the course of, 10 days or so afterwards and look for the right guys, not just somebody who could help me to possibly finish out a week. Excuse me. But I'll say in a 2014 points league that I'm in, where we only have 2 rounds in our draft, and then it's a lot of waiver wires. And I didn't do a lot of trading this last year because I felt like my team was pretty strong and just needed to be healthy. And I didn't get a lot of injury issue in that league. But Kris Bryant, his resurgence was huge for me this year and has been, and head into the playoffs in different leagues. It will be. And the other player on that 2014 league is Chris Flexen, who was one of those waiver wire pickups. And Ty, we play 3 matchups in this league. So right now we are at 60 matchups on the year. My team is 38-22. And this will be the first week the entire season I have lost all 3 matchups. And it's going to suck. And it's probably going to be the reason I don't make the playoffs in that league after feeling really confident about my playoff shot. But that's what happens when, you have Cody Bellinger, and he has the Cody Bellinger season that we're going to talk about shortly. In our home league, it's really hard for me to say that like one guy has absolutely crushed it because I've got both Otanis, and pitcher Otani is getting better and better, and hitter Otani has been the 5th best player in 8x8. But if I'm picking a guy that I didn't expect as much from as that I've got, it's Austin Reilly. I think he's on our list as well to talk about. So that's another guy. And then in all the other leagues, especially the salary cap leagues, it's guys who just don't cost a lot. Those are the guys who, when they provide you with star level value, like they can have a big weekend. Darren Ruff has been one of those guys for me at times this year. And Tyler Naquin early in the year saved my bacon when I needed him. Josh Fleming, who started well and then has really tailed off. He was somebody that I was really counting on. Jameson Taillon has had an interesting season as it's, ebbed and flowed. But we're going to start off with 2 guys that were once upon a time, 2019, I think. They were our number 1 and 2 ranked dynasty prospect pitchers. And that's Michael Kopeck and Brent Honeywell Jr. And Ty's comment is written in the notes. I didn't delete it, but I took a screenshot of it, and I'm going to print it off, and I'm going to stare at it every morning when I wake up when Honeywell has won his 3rd Cy Young. And it says Honeywell needs a $6 million. He needs the $6 million man's elbow. That's very much like Conor McGregor's new titanium shin or whatever that thing is for all those MMA fans out there. But I wanted to make note of this, Ty, because we did have really high hopes for him. Obviously, injuries, right? Devastating. No pro ball between 17 and 21 with registered stats. So he did get a little taste of the bigs this year, 2 short starts that he had. But through his season, which again, he has missed time with injury, 61 and a third innings, 52 strikeouts. Honeywell is supposed to be a K machine. That's his whole thing. That's one of the reasons why I loved him as a prospect pitcher, was that he would be able to throw hitters off all the way through. It hasn't happened this year. Instead of being like a younger guy for his age, like 3 and 4 years younger than the level he's playing at, he's now catching right up. He's 26-year-old at AAA. Next year he will be. That's the average age of AAA. Sorry, 27 is the average age of AAA players. Next year he'll be that guy. So it's make or break time for him, and that's somebody that I had reasonably high hopes for even this season. But I will say, much like Otani, I was thinking to myself, he does need things to go a certain direction for him with Tampa, which basically meant they need to give him run. And when they called him up early in the year, I was like, here we go, and boom, he's back down and has not come back up. So
I think Tampa did the right thing by Honeywell by keeping him down this year. He, rushing him to the big leagues, even if his stuff's ready, wouldn't be best for his long-term outcome. Mm-hmm. So I think they did right by that. But he definitely needs to prove himself in the spring. So we're really going to be looking for those spring training stats. For Honeywell, mostly for me, I'm going to be looking for quick outs. I think that's going to be the thing for him. That is going to be the long-term career decider, because I think for a guy that does have an unhealthy arm, I don't want to see stressful innings, right? So if we can see him power through some innings, get some weak contact, that's
to contact.
That's going to be the red flag that I'm going to be seeking out or being excited about, one or the other.
Okay, the other guy is Kopeck. So he opted out for 2020, recovering from Tommy John after 19 into the 2020 season. So he did not play, but in 54 innings this year, he's got 77 Ks. The walks have been fine, which was going to be the concern. Again, this is relief pitcher, so we could also say that it's irrelevant, but he has given up 24 hits, 24 earned runs, 8 dingers, which is all like somewhat high for what you were looking for out of a dominant relief pitcher. A 4 ERA on the year. Again, it's hard when you are a relief pitcher. As a starter in 54 innings, you can really change that ERA, get it up or down over the next 15 innings, because that could be 15 days. But either way, I think he has been okay. Expectations for him in Dynasty after this season, Ty, do you think they're going to be high or low?
I think they're going to try to stretch him out in the spring. I think the expectations are going to be very high.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think they should be tapered, because I'm going to stand by that he's a bullpen arm. I don't. Okay. I don't. And the reason I say this, it's even different than what I thought coming into this season, although those concerns still remain. The big concern for me as him as a starter moving forward is the way they've used his pitches this season, right? So he's only thrown 29 curveballs. He's only thrown 27 changeups. If you're trying to develop this kid as a starter, you're using those 2 pitches more. It's a fact. Sorry. So like that's a big red flag for me for him as a starter. And to be fair, those pitches have been hit very hard when they have been thrown. So that's a bad sign for me. So I won't be the one that's bringing him up the list. I'll be sending him down the list, and only because he's a reliever, not because I don't think he's going to be a very, very good reliever, because he will be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think what's going to happen this offseason is that fantasy industry train is going to start chugging, and they're going to start to say, here's the ceiling, here's the ceiling. But we're seeing what happens when you are a major league pitcher and you're going through that war of attrition, which is a full season, even though it's from the bullpen. We're seeing the ups and downs for Kopeck, and he has had a few starts as well this year. But to your point, Ty, about pitch selection, that's going to be something he has to walk into camp doing right away next year. It can't be something they introduce towards the end and start to ask him to do more things as soon as everyone's throwing everything. If Kopeck wants to be a starter, if the plan is for Kopeck to be a starter, that's going to need to be immediate. Let's talk about a super disappointing guy in Dynasty. So disappointing that he was dropped in our 14-team home league, Cody Bellinger. The career WAR for all the WAR league guys out there is 17, but this year minus 1.2. So tough titties for all those guys in those WAR leagues with Cody Bellinger this year, Ty. But RBI totals, everything with Cody Bellinger, and this goes to 2020 as well. Like if we go back to 2020, I'll do some quick math on under 500 at bats. So let's just call that a full season if you missed a bit of time. He's under 70 runs. What are we for dingers? 21 dingers, and that's only 9 this year. 62 62 RBIs and 8 stolen bases, and a shell of his former self, and a batting average at 200 the last 2 seasons combined right now, and reduced his role with the Dodgers at this point. So seeing him in a keeper league get dropped, I could certainly see that he could get picked up by one of the playoffs teams and somebody just to hold to see if he has a hot September. I don't know. Like, honestly, I don't know that he can do. He's not going to be able to pull a Mondesi where he's the best player in September like Mondesi did last year. Even though Bellinger does have a track record for it, it's just that so much baseball has passed since he last did it that I don't think the turnaround for him is going to be immediate light switch. So what are your thoughts on Cody Bellinger?
Well, Cody Bellinger is a little bit like the San Francisco Giants of fantasy baseball, and it's that every other year thing, right? So I'm not going to count 2020 as a reasonable every other year because it's just it's a big asterisk seasons for me. So this is that every other year adjustment thing. I think we'll see a bounce back. I do think he needs to make an adjustment because he definitely has a Chris Davis size hole in his swing that has been exploited, and he can't get to it. And if he can't, he's not going to be a major league hitter. It's that simple. So at the end of the day, that's the big thing. Honestly, I think he could benefit from a different hitting coach. Change of scenery could be, a possibility here. It also make it a little bit easier for LA to somehow retain Corey Seeger if that is in the plans by moving Cody Bellinger and freeing up some extra at bats for the rest of that team there. They don't need Bellinger, right? I mean, they're so deep. So I could see them shifting him and selling him out somewhere else and seeing if they can get some return to help them in the future. So I want to see that. I think that for me is what I'm looking for in the offseason. I want to see Cody Bellinger somewhere else.
San Diego.
I mean, they desperately want a left-handed bat, but there's a 0% chance the Dodgers are going to trade him there.
Yeah, I know, but that would be funny if somehow like there was a 3-team trade.
I'm shocked that doesn't happen more often, to be honest. Like
within the division?
Yeah, or the Reds are like, hey, we'll trade this for Bellinger. Meanwhile, in the back pocket, they've already talked to San Diego.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How does that not happen more? I'm shocked.
I don't understand. I don't know if it has more to do with the repercussions of making that deal. But at the same time, that's we talk about it, and we hear a lot of fantasy people talk about, baseball's a business, right? So if baseball's a business, then exactly what you just said is somebody says to you, hey, if you can get Cody Bellinger, this is what I can do for you, and you just said have that deal in your back pocket. then yeah, that would be amazing. But somebody else who's been amazing this year, Ty, on our Toronto Blue Jays, Robbie Ray, he is just across the board. He's having a better version of his 2017 season with the Diamondbacks, in which he had a 12.1 strikeout per nine. This year it's at 11.4, but it is going up, and he's going to end up with a career high in strikeouts, assuming nothing bad happens to his body in September. And the whip has been impressive, just a tick over 1.01. Excuse me. Robbie Ray took a whatever it was, like a 1 year, $8 million deal to come back to Toronto. When he was traded there, you said, I think they could re-sign him. I think this could be a good thing for him and Pete Walker. Well, Ty, you were right. Anywhere that you picked him up, good for you, and good to the listeners who did the same thing. What are you thinking of Robbie Ray rest of season? And what are you thinking about 2022 and beyond with Robbie Ray? He will be 30 next year.
Yeah, Robbie Ray's about as locked in as any player in all of baseball right now. I mean, he looks fantastic.
His game is as tight as his pants.
He only gave up one hit today, and that was to Chris Davis. Crush Chris Davis.
Well, the other one retired.
Yeah, so he's the only one left anymore. But he's a shell of his former self as well. But
oh my goodness, is he?
He did slip a double in there, and that was really the only blip on the radar. Ray threw about 106 pitches, give or take. It was very, very good. I think he needs to go 3 of 5 starts that are elite, like he's been since July, in the Cy Young's his. So I think, without getting too far into it, I think the baseball writers are going to penalize Garrett Cole for notably being part of the sticky stuff quota, if you will. Garrett Cole's been very good in his own right. But there definitely was a dip, and it was very obvious that it was the result of him changing from
it was immediately after he had the press conference where he talked about it, and he adjusted.
Yep. And I just think the baseball writers are going to keep that in mind. So as long as the numbers are close, now they still need to be close. If for whatever reason Robbie goes off the rails, it's going to be an issue. But, I very much think Ray could get it done. So we'll see. But that's what I like. Moving forward, I like him. I like him in Toronto. I will be very concerned if he leaves Toronto. There's obviously a good fit there, whether it's culture, pitching coach, whatever. He has found whatever it is. But it's not as if he reinvented himself with a new pitch or they changed his mechanics. He's just in a good place. Like, he's still the same pitcher he was 3 years ago. He's just locked in. And so whether that's the coaching staff, the team around him, or whatever, there's a good fit. I think it's impossible for him to replicate what he's doing right now outside of a Toronto Blue Jays uniform.
Which is really something when you think about the fact that he started this year pitching in Dunedin, then moved to Buffalo, now in Toronto. He has been his best version in, I don't know if you would know, I guess Buffalo would be the worst of the 3 stadiums to play in, but he is in a very tough hitter's park. He has been his best version so far. Next guy up is 22-year-old Joe Adele, not taking the world by storm in his 107 at-bats since he has been recalled this year. Joe Adele has a 224 average, a 272 OBP, which is way off his 342 that he had in AAA, and an OPS of 590. We were talking about Joe Adele as a target before. Is he still that for you? And what do you need from him in September on this non-playoff Angels team?
I need him to stop getting better. I want him to be worse so that I can buy low in the offseason. Because this kid's a ball player, right? I've seen enough at bats from him now. The strikeout concerns that were there, I think he was just trying to hit home runs. And I think they've finally gotten through to him that they want him to be a hitter and that the power will come. So we know the power's there, which is great. And we know he's starting to learn how to hit, which is even better. So if you watch really closely, he's doing little things with good contact on tough pitches, staying in at bats, just doing things that ball players do when they're really good or above average. And so I definitely think he's going to be there. I do not think he's going to be Acuna, right? Which is, I think, what some people thought he could be, right? He's definitely not going to be that guy. I don't know if I have a comparable off the top of my head. So why don't you tell me what you're expecting from Adele, and I'll see if I can throw it a comparable by the time you're done.
Well, what I would love to see from Adele is a 250 average September, but a 320 OBP. I want him to be taking balls and not swinging at them. And that's the big thing. And it's kind of tough too with a team that there might be some veterans on the Angels with 1 foot out the door. You know, we already know there's guys like Rendon. I don't know if Rendon's with the team. Sometimes guys stay with the team when they're hurt. Trout, you know, what's going on with some of these guys. I did see an interesting thing with Trout and Aaron Judge, how everybody says that Aaron Judge is always hurt. And I believe he's played more games the last 4 years than Mike Trout has, something interesting like that. So that should have been enough time, Ty, for you. For me, Joe Adele is somebody who I want to see a better version of himself in September, because I want him to stay with the Angels and I want him to start and play every day, because if he finishes this year with, say, 225 at bats and, you know, he's looking like a slightly better version of Jared Kelenic, it's going to be a rough offseason for a lot of those prospect or former top prospect outfielders. And the only people who will benefit from that are redraft guys, because all of the dynasty owners, anyone who's got those guys, the Adeles, the Kelenics, all those dudes, they're not going to trade him because now's not the time.
Yeah, I think Adele, Arizarena is the guy that I think is the best comparable. Moderate power, decent hit tool, but not elite. Good speed, good defense, right? So I just think that's probably the best comparable. And if you look at the trajectory that Arizarena had, it was when he put on the extra little bit of muscle and size that comes as you get older and train regularly and you do all the things that major leaguers do. I think that's his trajectory.
Is a vanity metric, could a category within vanity metrics be when a player is traded to a team? Because way back when Arizarena was traded to Tampa, we were like, get this guy on your radar. Look what he did in September with the Cardinals. Tampa Bay saw something, you know, write this down. And it took a while before he was able to come over in 2020 to make it happen. But he's also had himself a perfectly fine sophomore campaign, not the bottom falling out sophomore campaign that others may have thought was coming for him. But he was, I think, consensus top 100 in redraft. I think he's held his value. Depending on the league you're in, you're probably very happy that you drafted him. Depends on, you know, how aggressive you were.
And he's definitely been one of the more consistent guys, right? Like, I mean, that's a fact, right? Like he's definitely been like front to back. Like he's ranked 101 in our 8x8. So last week 71, 137 last 2 weeks, 212 this month, 101 across the season, right? So, you know, a very reasonable expectation for a guy that has had some recoil, which we all knew would be there. But you know, I'll take that over the yo-yo that I talked about earlier on my roster. Like, give me a guy that I can count on week by week, especially if you're in a head-to-head format. Like those are the kind of guys that give you those wins week in and week out by not giving you all their stats in a 7-game window.
Definitely. So now we'll move on to the AL MVP runner-up in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And why is he the runner-up? Well, it's Ohtani time, baby. And we're not even going to need to have this conversation. But already 102 runs for him on the year, 39 home runs, 97 RBIs, 4 stolen bases too, 315 average. The big one here, 407 OBP and OPS over 1,000 after play today. Ty, Vlad's been a beast. In our home league, I traded him and Judge and Strasburg and Mondesi for Soto because I liked the certainty that I felt was Soto, and there was no way I was going to be able to keep any of the other 3 guys. I've mentioned it before. I'm still okay with that because right now in 8x8, Vlad is number 1 and Soto is number 2. So although I did trade away, you know, Judge, who's I think 30th or something like that, I got to keep Ohtani the hitter. So for me, Vlad has been everything that everyone said he's supposed to be, and now everyone just needs to shut up and let him be Vladimir Guerrero Jr., not Vladimir Guerrero's son.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And the only thing that I will throw out there, let's just pretend that Salvador Perez hits 50 home runs. Is he a late entrant into the MVP conversation?
No, not at all.
Interesting.
because he doesn't
50
pitch.
home runs out of the catcher position with a
Yeah, like
280
that's
average.
awesome. But they have an award for that. It's called the Silver Slugger. You don't give an MVP to a catcher on a team that's going to lose 90 games. I would say you would give the MVP to a catcher who hits 0 home runs and the team wins 130 games because he's so amazing at catching, not because he can hit home runs.
And I 100% agree. And I set you up perfectly with this one because that's my argument against Ohtani. And that's really the argument I have, and this is the only way I see him not winning for the record, is if Vladdy stays as hot as he is right now, and the Toronto Blue Jays make the playoffs,
which they won't.
I don't think they will either. But he's your MVP though. Has to be. If he gets them in,
I understand.
Has to be the MVP. There's no argument against it. Like, I don't care how good Ohtani is. He was not good enough to get his team in there. And I don't care if he impacted both sides. I'm as big an Ohtani fan as anybody after you. But you like your point is the same for Ohtani because he's a silver slugger in the outfield or he's a Cy Young candidate. So he's probably not a Cy Young candidate, right? That's pretty fair. He doesn't have the innings to do it. And he's a silver slugger in the outfield. So how does he become the MVP if because
he's doing both of those things as one player, one roster.
Still didn't help his team.
Well, no, it certainly did help his team. I think the difference between Ohtani on the Angels and I don't know what their potential could be for wins this year. Let's just say they're a 72 win team, 75 wins. The difference would probably be like 15 games because it's not the WAR that we see. It's what the player is doing, what he's bringing to the table. To me, Ohtani is just so amazing that no matter what anyone else does, like Vlad, great third base converted over to first. Now he's settled in. Salvi coming back from Tommy John, right? That he had, missing time coming back, reestablishes himself. That's awesome. But no one in baseball has done what Ohtani has done since Babe Ruth. And it's been predicted, just like Vlad's greatness, Ohtani's potential for greatness has to be recognized by being the most valuable player. I understand the playoff angle and the
I don't disagree, but to me the MVP is that, like, and I think we need to define that or we end up with this nonsense because if you look at the years that Trout didn't win the MVP in Anaheim, it was because they didn't make the playoffs. He was the clear MVP.
Yeah, Cabrera beat him. Cabrera was on a playoff team, and we've seen Josh Donaldson beat him. Josh Donaldson was on a playoff team, and okay, let's talk about an NL Cy Young candidate and what he might need to do rest of year, whether it needs to be anything other than just keep on chugging, and that is 2.27, I should say, ERA. Corbin Burns, Ty, congratulations. You were telling the Dingers listeners long ago. We even made a trade in a league where I was like, I'm done. You take your Corbin Burns and you give me whoever it was. But in 139 innings this year, he has been amazing. Awesome. And last year, as soon as Milwaukee got their S together and he was starting, he was also amazing. So is there anything that you need to see from Corbin Burns, or are you're glad everybody else is now getting to see the MLB results that you thought we should be seeing for a long time prior?
I think he has to finish the season strong because I think Zach Wheeler is going to finish the season strong. And that's, to me, probably the only one he's worried about because I don't think they're going to I shouldn't say that. They're definitely not going to handcuff Burns with Woodruff, even though Woodruff has been elite. Wheeler's going to finish strong with a softer schedule. I'm concerned Buehler is going to be ramped back. That might cost Buehler the Cy Young. So we'll see. Like, Buehler probably should win the Cy Young in the NL. Like, realistically,
there are several good pitchers, of which you've mentioned the bulk.
Yeah,
like Scherzer as well. Teammate, but miss some time.
It has to be
miss some time.
It has to be Buehler Burns with an outside shot of Wheeler, and Wheeler has to finish extremely strong to even have a shot, and Buehler has to go the other direction. So Burns is probably the runner-up at this point, in my opinion. I think Buehler wins it if it was given away today. But I do think Burns has bigger games ahead. And I think that because they're going to be jockeying to not play the Dodgers in the first round. So I think Buehler's going to see a different workload. And I think that could hurt him if Burns delivers.
And in the Cy Young, just while we're talking about it, where do you think Ryan Tepera finishes this year?
6th innings.
What? Anyway, okay. So next up, this is kind of more for me. This is left fielder Jesse Winker, the 27-year-old with Cincinnati, who had an awesome 60-game season 2020 and 54 games. He mashed with a 932 OPS. What did he do this year? Pre-injury 955 OPS. But the big thing with him was the average. When Jesse Winker was hitting baseballs really well, he was also Mr. OBP. He's doing those things again. And Jesse Winker takes walks, does not strike out a lot, and he could be an absolute game changer as a 27-year-old. Lock and load for me, Ty. This is one of those like top 15 redraft guys. Now, when you get into Dynasty, I've got to look at the scope a little longer, but this is going to be prime Winker moving forward, not very brief period of time where he's been successful, because you can go all the way back to 17 when he broke in, and he was doing similar things: 298 average, 375 OBP, OPS 900. It was just that he seemed to do a little bit of a power slide, and then he's come back from it. And what I mean is selling out for the power. Now he's also getting those walks again like he was before. And it's great to see. He's not going 1-for-1 like I would love my guys to do, like in 2018 when he did it. But 53 walks to 75 strikeouts with all the power that he's providing. What's he for dingers here? 24. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I said it on repeat all season with Winker. I don't get why people pitch to him with right-handed pitchers. Just stupid. Stop doing it. But beyond that, he's definitely provided value to fantasy owners. No questions about that. A quick look at the stats is extremely obvious as to what he's done. Sit him against lefties. That's the only thing you got to know as a Winker owner.
Yeah, if you're in daily and you're putting in the time, like if you're in a roto, you can certainly get an even better stat line from Winker for your start sits. So somebody else who you just auto start now, and the talk was possibly he could be a closer after he closed out the World Series last year, is 24-year-old Julio Eures, 156 and a third innings this year. The nice stat is 168 Ks. It's not blown away, right? It's not 189 like Burns and Ray, but it's above 1.1. So where is he on the year here for K per 9? Whatever. It's pretty good. I just got confused and accidentally clicked on StatHead link, which now I'm going to a Best Buy site. Awesome. They're not a sponsor yet. But anyway, so if you're not busy, if you're not too busy shopping at Best Buy, you could go back and look at the 16 wins that Urias has. Now, Ty, we did talk as well about Kershaw, Julio bet. And I said for the Cy Young, that we'll have to stop talking about Cy Young, but that's what happens when the rare show that we talk about the best players. I said Kershaw would get the votes. Well, Kershaw is just, I don't even know if he's pitched since that episode. So it would definitely be Urias, and Julio's got the stat line that would have had him 15 years ago, would have had him in line for that, which is a 3.11 ERA and 27 starts this year. Given up, 19 dingers, but relative to rest of baseball, not too bad. He's getting it done. And where's that whip? 1.049. So even tighter than Robbie Ray's pants and Robbie Ray's whip. So Urias is great. And for me, this is all the way back from like 18 when I started to take a much deeper dive into the 30-team dynasty leagues, and I was scooping them up everywhere. Like, this is what I've been waiting for. It took a long time, and we've got little tastes here and there. But now we're at the point where Urias should just walk into 2022 with a starting job and move forward. And I'm loving it. And I'm happy to have him. And I would absolutely have him as a top target this offseason, because he's not going to get all the fanfare because of that loaded Dodgers team and all the things that happen. So what are your thoughts? Does Urias need to do anything in September to sway you one way or the other?
Not for this year. Like, I think you're getting what you're getting with Urias the rest of the season here. I'm very concerned by the 5-inning pattern with Urias. Like, it's been very consistent, especially the back half of the season. He only has 11 of those 27 starts where he's pitched into the 6th inning. So that is concerning.
Jose Suarez did it once. That was last night.
Yeah,
Off topic, but
So it's not to say there's not
Yeah,
value
it
there,
happens.
but to me, like if you're moving him into the ace conversation,
Mhm.
right, that type of pitcher, that's a red flag for me because if he's not getting consistently third and fourth time through the order, which it looks like they're being very careful with him, then they know something, and therefore we have to pay attention because I
Okay.
think, and I said this in season already, the big concern for me is that he eliminated the slider. So fastball's great, changeup's okay, curveball's very good. If you were to take the slider away from Kershaw, which is not one of his greatest weapons, but it's a very good weapon because it offsets everything else. It allows them to pitch the fastball down in the zone. It allows them to set up the changeup, right? So those are concerns I have for Urias, that he doesn't have that perfect pitch repertoire to be a dominant Cy Young ace.
Okay, well, we'll go right into Adam Wainwright, who 39 years old, is about to. He's one win away from getting into the rarefied air that he lived in from 2009 to 2014 when he was a 19, 20, 14, 19, and 20 game winner. But 291 ERA as well in those 20 starts, 3 complete games. I don't know if that leads baseball, but that's a lot of complete games for him. 176 innings this year. He's just been great. Adam Wainwright, are you basically waiting to find out if he also gets an extension like Yachty did, and then you're going to maybe do something, maybe not do something? You know, I have Waino in one league. There's no way, because my rotation sucks as part of it. There's no way I'm going to trade him. He's going to have to retire on my roster. What are your thoughts on him?
I think it's silly if he doesn't extend because it clearly looks as if he can keep going.
He's
So
competitive. Yeah.
yeah, so I think him and Yachty have to go together so that they can go into the hall together.
Oh, right.
I
You did
think,
mention that on a previous pod.
yeah, I think it has to happen that way, and I think their extensions will match unless there's a dip in performance, which there hasn't been. So I think you'll see him go another year. And frankly, the Cardinals need him. So I don't think that they can say no. I mean, for the love of God, Jay Happ's pitching for them. So
Well, I was going to say there's somebody that we're going to talk about later who was supposed to kind of take over, and we'll get into that. But next up here, Ty, Austin Reilly, somebody that in 2019 had the power and looked decent, but did not blow the doors off for everybody. And then in 2020, it appeared as though he'd taken a step back. But I mean, when you're looking at what's going on this year with Austin Reilly in Atlanta, 24 years old, the guy has established himself. He's going to have 100 RBIs. He's going to be, well, I don't know how close he'll get. He'll get into the 90s for runs, and he's going to be possibly nipping on 40 dingers, but definitely well into the 30s this year with an average over 300, which is career high for him. OBP is career high 376, and right now the OPS over 900. So what are your thoughts on Austin Reilly? I don't know that he needs to do a lot of the not fall apart this month, but more so dynasty with this one. Are you into this, Austin Reilly? Are you paying for this in the offseason? Price is going to be high.
I don't know that I'm paying. I'm into him, but I don't know that I'm paying at this point. Like it doesn't fit my style. I always have a healthy minor league system going at all times. So I would never probably buy a guy this young in his career. I'd wait for him to have a bad season 3 years from now or 2 years from now even. And that's when I would buy an Austin Reilly. But for me, he's and I saw an article on it a couple weeks ago. They mentioned MVP in Austin Reilly, which is a little rich, but also not that far off either. So that's kind of where he's headed, right? And when we talked about this last year in the playoffs, like he hit a lot of baseballs very, very hard, very similar to a third baseman in San Diego, again, who we're going to talk about a little bit later. So I think that's a very similar profile, minus the defensive prowess to look for. So we'll touch on that. But I'm into Reilly. Everyone else should be as well.
All right. Joey Votto's the next one up. So Votto transitioned from a 1-to-1 walk to strikeout guy. Well, really, he walked more than he struck out. For his major league career, he's got 1,276 walks and 1,466 Ks. But there were several years where he had more walks than strikeouts. But the power is back and could be a career year for him. His career high, it's in 17 was 36. He's at 28 after play tonight. Joey Votto is 37, which I do believe I mentioned already. He has 3 years beyond this left on his contract with the Reds. What are you thinking on Votto? I've already, before this season, dedicated real money to Joey Votto for the next 4 years. And I was willing to do, I think it's over $14 I'm paying for him for the next 4 years. And I've got 1 year of dominance, or not dominance, 1 year where I'm very excited with it. How are you on Votto?
Small stat correction: 37 career high in 2010. In his
thank
MVP
you.
season. That's all good. Minor adjustment, but I'm still out on Votto. Like, even if this is a repeat next year, similar to why I'm not buying on Reilly, like, I'm usually building for the next wave, or I'm in a wave of talent on my rosters. So I'm not going to buy Votto for that reason, but I think he's a very good off-season acquisition if he's available, because if you don't have a first baseman, we've talked about this ad nauseum, like, there's not a lot of options out there, right? Not a lot of emerging first basemen. So there are some coming through the minor leagues. So if you can get Votto and you have a stopgap in your system, it's a pretty good play. And I know that's the way you're thinking, Robbie. So he can't really hurt you, because he's always going to walk. Even if he's walking less, he's still going to walk. So I think that right there is enough to justify it over taking a risk on a guy like Mancini, who we saw have a big bubble this year. Aguilar's obviously moving on. I don't know who else would fit into this profile here.
Well, I was going to take an angle, which will be more of an off-season topic for us too, but that would be players that are younger than him that I would prefer to have. And a really good comparable for me to give to you would be, do you want Votto or do you want Jared Walsh moving forward?
That really depends on my system. Like, I would take Votto 9 times out of 10, but that's assuming that I have somebody coming.
Well, I was going to say, let's say you've got nobody. Let's say you traded it away, and you now are looking at which one of these two guys, Jared Walsh or Joey Votto, over the next couple years, 3 years.
I still think I'm Votto, and I think
I agree.
I think I'm going to find a replacement elsewhere.
Which I think will be reflected when we start to do our ranks and when we start to look into them and check those things out, because when lots of things we talk about, we don't cover a lot of the deep stats. We don't cover everything on every player, because I don't think it's entertaining to listen to somebody talk to me about numbers. I can look at numbers if I want to. I also just want someone's opinion who's good at dynasty baseball. And that's why we're here doing dingers, because we know what we're doing, and, we'll have playoff records that are positive ones to show for it. Even in our big money auction league, Ty won 91 games. I missed the playoffs. But my God, does my roster look ugly? I don't think anyone would look at my roster and be like, I bet that team won 91 games, but you find a way, right? And sometimes it's guys who are terrible 1 year, but you think that the silver lining's there. We don't always mention every stat, but a long time ago we were saying, hey, Lucas Giolito, that's a guy you might want to go ahead and wrap your lips around and give a big old kiss in dynasty, because he's going to be better than he was. And I think it was 17 was when he was absolutely horrible. Oh, it was 18 when he was absolutely horrible.
What a graphic segue. Wrapping your lips around.
Give him a big kiss.
Yeah, right. So
give him a big kiss.
I am very concerned about Giolito's long-term value, though. Not as a guy that you want to have, just as an ace, right? Like, so I'm very concerned his best year is behind us.
No.
Yeah, I'm very concerned. I'm not saying he can't be relevant. Like, he can't be SP3, SP2 even at times. I do not believe he's an SP1 moving forward.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. My point to you would lines up. I think he's an every fifth day guy. I think he's going to be higher than a K per 9 guy. So he could be 10 per 9 and then have another year in whatever the next 3 years where he goes and has a 228K year again. And this year he could very well be back there, because he's got all of September to get 40 Ks and he'll be back at 220. But the issue, Giolito also, I believe, is on the IL right now. But the issue with Giolito that I've seen this year is that he's been giving up more home runs. And although the walks haven't been crazy, because he gave up a ton of walks in 18 and really got it in control in 19, he is giving up, or on pace to be giving up, more walks than he did in 19. So There are a few things that allow, hitters free passes. Always comes back to Bernia. But I'm also a little curious as to what the White Sox are going to do with him long term and his catcher. Who's gonna be the guy behind the dish? Is it going to be Yasmani Grandal, or are they going to have a different type of catcher? Because we know sometimes certain pitchers gravitate towards certain catchers better, and he might be the type of guy who needs to rock with a certain dude. But regardless, to me, Giolito is a lock and load. But I do agree, Ty, if you're paying an ace price for Giolito, you might not be happy with how everything looks. But there's something to be said for starting every fifth day, for having an ERA, sub 370, which tonight it's 369. And I fully expect it to be under 350 when the season's over, way over a K per nine. And right now on a dominant team, he should consistently be winning you 10 plus games a year the next 3 or 4 years. So
yeah, correct.
Just, it's about what you want to pay for him. The next guy up is, you say Kikuchi. I say MVP. No, but definitely is finally, doing well for himself. Third year in, 7-7 record this year. 4.12 ERA is better. It's over a full point and change than last year. 25 starts for him. He had 32 and 19, just so everyone's aware. So health has not been a concern with Kikuchi. He might not top his 161 and 2/3 innings total, but he has been better, way better on the earned runs. Home runs. I mean, that's a baseball thing right now. It's hard to prevent, but even being in Seattle, he's been giving up a decent amount, 26 home runs, and walks have gone up for him. But I think Kikuchi's settled in nicely. I would like to see his whip lower. He's at 1.23, which is right about where I start to get concerned with guys that could, all of a sudden blow up to 1.4. And then there's a lot more guys on base. So I don't know what you'd say for him. SP4 ish. He'll be 31 next year. But to me, Kikuchi can finish strong, and I think that can go a long way for him in the offseason for dynasty value.
I just think Kikuchi's fooled people this year. He had a stretch of about 8 games where he was very good, but he's been really bad the rest of the season. So his ERA in July was 6.11. His ERA in August is 4.5. His whip since July 1st is about 1.52. So it's not been very good with a lot of short outings. So I think that's the guy that he is that SP5. Like, I think SP5 is the ceiling realistically with a couple outlier starts, but you get that from an SP5, right? SP5s have good starts every now and then. That's a reality. So I think Seattle's going to opt out of his contract because I don't think they got what they thought they were getting. They wanted a mid-rotation guy here, and they're getting a back rotation guy, and they paid like SP2 money, right? So I think when he moves from Seattle, the bottom falls out on Kikuchi, right?
Okay.
I really think that's going to hurt him. He does give up a little bit of home runs. What's he got? 11, 14, 21, 26 already this year, right?
Yeah.
So not awful, but not good either. But keeping in mind he's in one of the biggest ballparks in baseball, remove that number goes up, right? So that's my concern there, is that I think that's the way it plays out. I don't think there's much he can do for me rest of the season to change my mind on this one. I've been out before. I'm still out. So that's full honesty on that one.
Okay. Next guy up is Corey Seeger. And actually, I'll say this. Chris Flexen was another one of those Dipoto from, an Asian market signing, and much cheaper. And the results have been better, but a U.S. pedigree. And that might be something that affects the Kikuchi thing moving forward and other international players. We do see from time to time guys come over and they don't do anything. Kikuchi has at least established himself. And to your point, Ty, even if it's been back and forth, I'm sure there are stats far beyond any advanced stat that we know of that teams are looking at and seeing something good and or something bad. So we'll have to see. Maybe this is a more important September than some of the other players we've discussed so far. Corey Seager, pending free agent, and doesn't look like he's got a team unless, what you said, Ty, that the Dodgers could re-sign him. So he could be on the way out, having a perfectly good season, 800 plus OPS, 280 plus average. Walks and strikeouts are not high for what he's doing, ball and play guy, only 8 dingers on the year, which is low. I think Corey Seager needs a really good September for himself, not just because he's going off to be a free agent, but I think it's important when you head into the playoffs to be playing your best. And I think he's gonna do it, but that's what I'd like to see from him going into the offseason. He's somebody I'm just gonna stay away from. But basically, if the team has the guy, I'm not gonna be talking to them at all about trading for Corey Seager. It's just a guy who I'm looking for shortstops elsewhere for different reasons.
Yeah, I think he's a ridiculous buy low right now. Like, he is easily a top 5 shortstop, right? You're moving Lindor out of the top 5 at this point. So for me, Corey Seager is an easy decision, top 5 shortstop moving forward, at least for the next couple of years. So he doesn't need to do anything for me because I recognize how good this guy is. He's had trouble staying on the field the last 2 seasons. That's the big concern with Corey Seager. Healthy, he's a top 15, maybe even a top 10 fantasy player. But that's assuming he gets a full season, right? So we haven't seen that, and that's the concern. It will be the concern moving forward. But for me, I'm always in on Seager. Left-handed bat with good plate discipline. 3 walks again tonight. Quick update on the Cy Young conversation from earlier. Buehler gave up 6 runs today. Burns is now the NL ERA leader.
Cut Buehler off that list right away, everybody.
Yeah, he's gone. See ya. Yeah. He's tighter pants. Get tighter pants, sir.
So I don't know exactly where he was on other people's list, but Dylan Carlson was a top 50 type guy for us, but not inside our top 20. For others, he was like, I think I've seen him inside top 10s prior to losing rookie eligibility or prospect eligibility. But this year, Carlson in regular playing time, 456 at bats right now, has a 757 OPS, a 342 OBP, which I love to see, a 259 average, but low power with only 13 dingers, and that Cardinals offense not giving him a lot of opportunities to drive guys in, 48 RBIs, 2 stolen bases. Dylan Carlson is the same age as Joe Adele. He is playing way better than Joe Adele. If Joe Adele could put the September together that Dylan Carlson has had this year, like the same stat line that I just rang off, I would be over the moon for Joe Adele moving forward. But for some reason, I'm not as impressed when I see Dylan Carlson doing it. And I think it has a lot to do with the organization he's in and my fear that they're not going to be able to allow him to be like a run monster. He's got 66 runs right now. I kind of look at his ceiling as 85. That would be great, but that's like the peak that he can do this year. He could end up with 74. Like, there's less than a month to go in play here. But for home runs, this not 20 for this year, not likely. He'll finish with 20 for this year. And I'm not sure what I feel about his potential from a 23-year-old, which he'll start next year, to say a 27-year-old. I don't know what that progression is going to be. I'm not going to own him anywhere in Dynasty. He'll be one of the guys I just choose to miss out on. Are you feeling the same way about Carlson? I don't know. I can't put a pin on what it is right now that I'm not buying into. But I haven't been impressed enough with him or his situation to, give him that like nod forward to go get him.
I don't have an issue with this situation. The Cardinals are notorious for not moving guys if they're not ready. So
Colton Wong didn't like the Cardinals very much.
No, but it's because Colton Wong likes to have a little bit of the, So, Carlson fits the mold a little bit better for St. Louis, and I think it's a good fit for him organizationally. My concern with Carlson is the big ballpark. I think he's more of a fence scrape power kind of guy. But I like the situation because he's got Arenado and Goldie who are going to be around for a couple of years. DeYoung's still there. O'Neill's going to be there, right? So there's enough depth that I think you might be off a little bit on your run ceiling. Because I do think the left-handed bat, me, I love seeing that left-handed bat ahead of your power. I'm a traditionalist in this way. I like left-handed bats in my 2-hole. I think it stirs the drink. I would love to see that because I don't think Goldie is going to be the prime bat there for the end of his contract. I think he's going to roll back behind Arenado. I think is the way that will play out over time. So I think his value will increase, but at no point am I going to say Dylan Carlson is an elite outfielder. I just don't think that he is. The power numbers aren't going to be there. He might
doesn't
have
steal either. I just think he gets lost in the shuffle personally. Like we haven't
Yeah.
seen the 800 OPS. We haven't seen because if we had seen a big month, then that means that we have seen a huge slump, and we haven't seen either. So I think he's just putting along. So when you're
I-
5 outfielder rotos, sure, but if
I
you're
think
looking
he's-
for like, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I think he's the guy that really benefits you when you get him later than you expected to.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Right? Like, I think that's the best way to say it. Because like if you reach for him, then you're gonna be pissed. But if you get him when he fell back to you, I think that's a great way to draft Dylan Carlson.
All right, somebody else who, when they fall back to you, you can be very happy with. Jameson Taillon, who's about to have his second highest career innings output, as long as he can get himself 2 1/3 more innings right now, Ty. So he's gonna, if he gets to 134 innings, he will be in rarefied air for him. Only once beyond that, and this is what we said before. This is what's going to happen with him this year. He's going to pitch out this year. He's going to just get to go. He's going to have 30 starts, and next year, Jameson Taillon is going to be in beast mode. I want all of it. He's going to be 30, and he's going to have good health, and he's a good guy, and he's Canadian, and he's ballsy. Well, not as ballsy as he used to be, but Taillon for me, despite the struggles in the last couple starts, and I know it's crappy timing, right? Getting ready for your playoff pusher, you're in your playoffs. You need these guys to be performing. This was a known thing that Jameson Taillon was going to have some issues at times this year. Now, he had a really good stretch up until these last 2 starts. But Taillon, for me, is a definite buy moving forward. And I think he's going to get forgotten about, Ty, because nothing on his line screams amazing, right? 1.23 whip right now, 131 strikeouts and 131 2/3 innings. So it's just under 1 per inning. And that is going to devalue him to all those people who just stare at numbers. But he's going to be on a really good team. He's not giving up a ton of home runs in a very tough park. Yankee Stadium, he's only given up 22 home runs, and he's not issuing a ton of free passes. So I'm liking Taillon moving forward, and I want you to tell me why I'm wrong.
I mean, the mere fact that 133 is a second career high in innings pitched, that's why. The odds of this guy staying healthy are very unlikely, and I would rather be wrong that he stays healthy than be holding the bag and him be hurt.
Okay.
I just think if you're a Jameson Taillon owner, the hype train this offseason will give you too much reason not to trade him.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So if people jump on and say, do exactly what I just did and put a nice little package together as far as what they can see in the future, maybe it is a good time. Okay, so here's another one. Aaron Cevalle, who hurt 60-day DL. I believe he's coming back in the next 10 days. 10-2 record right now this year, 3.32 ERA and 97 2/3 innings. Just everything but strikeouts. He does everything well except for strikeouts. Whip is just over 1. I know, Ty, you're not a big fan of Taillon. He's a guy who gets outs, not necessarily the flashiest way, but he'll be 27 to start next year, and on a team that's going the wrong direction, except for the pitching, because they just continue to have good starts and keep their team in games. But, Cleveland's front office is trying their very best to tear down the offense. And I believe if they could, they would go to 7 position players, and then they wouldn't have to pay another starter. That just a money saving idea. I remember seeing something that they threw. It was on MLB Trade Rumors, if you guys haven't checked it out. Joking, of course. But anyway, Cevalle, at all interested for you this offseason, Ty? I am.
Not even a little.
I think missing time is going to lower his value for redraft people. And we know that redraft rocks the dynasty boat, right?
I just don't think his stuff's good enough to get away with it. Like, I feel the same way about Eli Morgan in Cleveland. And anybody that doesn't have an elite pitch. I don't have a problem with guys that are painters, right? Guys that play the edges, that have a series of pitches, right? Like Felix Hernandez was a great example of a guy that did it for years. Nothing was like dominant, but had 4 or 5 plus pitches. That's kind of what Cevalle is, but without an out, like a dominant out pitch, right? That's what's missing for me with Cevalle. I really, I'll be honest, like there's very few pitchers I like less than the industry than Cevalle. And you know this, but I just think he's the kind of guy like, and I put myself in the batter's box. I would learn how to hit Cevalle, and I cannot figure out how major league hitters who are far more talented than I would ever have been at the game of baseball, how they're not going to figure this guy out. That's the thing I keep coming back to.
Okay.
Is that I just don't see something like you look at Garrett Cole. Like if he breaks off a fastball slider down and away on that outside corner, like he likes to do, like that's unhittable, right? You don't know the difference between those two things, and you have to guess, right? Cevalle, you don't have to guess all the time, right? And that's for me why I'm not as high on him as other people. Is that the stuff just doesn't blow you away at any point on any pitch?
Well, I think because he's not a K machine, he's immediately discredited to a like sub, not in a top 30 conversation for starting pitchers, just because of the case. But it's just and prior to the big breakdown this year and Cleveland really making the shift in the wrong direction, you could bank on him to be on a competitive team his previous 2 seasons. So we'll have to see how it goes for him. But I mean, to me, I think the price is going to be okay for him because he's not looked at as a stud, not looked at as somebody with a huge ceiling. So a reasonable offer could get it done. And maybe that's the kind of piece you need in your rotation. Again, he's got to be healthy to be able to do those things because he is giving you a complete package, probably better in your points leagues, depending on how your values go and things like that. But it could be a little tough in Cleveland. And again, if for points leagues too, if you're getting dinged big time for losses, if it's -5 points and a win is +7, that's a huge swing when your team stops, the team that the guy's on stops being competitive. Because instead of getting 7 points, you have to be risking losing 5. That's a 12-point swing over the course of a season. Cevalle's value can go down possibly 50+ points just because of the team he's on, not because of him. So you got to understand your format for that guy.
And the guy throws 6 pitches, right? So it gives him an edge, and I like that. I just don't think like if you get a pitch right on Garrett Cole, you could still miss. If you get a pitch right on Cevalle, you're going to hit it. And that's the difference, right? And that's what I'm getting at, is that I just think over time they're going to get his patterns and eventually his value will decrease. That's where I'm sitting, and I'll die on that hill.
Well, talking about a guy who has decreased value once, very, very coveted pitching prospect, Alex Reyes, finally regular MLB pitcher. However, he's coming out of the bullpen, but in, 58 games this year, he's got 29 saves. I got to count the losses because he had another one today, and it's pissing me off.
Seven losses.
7 losses, 5 wins. And when you get into closers, you can just assume every win is because they did something bad and gave up a run, and then the team came back and got it. Every loss, obviously they blew the game and the team did not have the opportunity to come back or did not come back when given the opportunity. But a 285 average and how many strikeouts here? A bazillion strikeouts, 76 strikeouts in 60 innings pitched. Alex Reyes is good. The 7 losses suck, but overall, I'm happy with Alex Reyes. I'm happy that he's doing things. And how old is he now here? 26 this year, 27 for next year. I like Alex Reyes. I don't know. I'm not doing the dynasty by the closer thing that I did a lot in 17, 18, 19. I was really big on getting your closers. I thought that was important. We've seen a new way that you can go about being just as effective. And a lot of leagues that have switched to save holds or are giving more points, if you're in a points league, to holds, they're allowing you to avoid guys like Reyes who are risky and, not just from the loss standpoint, but from the injury standpoint. I don't know that I'm going to look for him this year, Ty. I didn't draft or have him anywhere this year. That Trevor Bauer trade I made in our home league where I gave up, first round pick and whatever else it was. He was part of that package back. And that was pretty much the only way I was going to get him. So what are your thoughts on Reyes? And then we get to talk about a super fun guy next.
Very alarming 44 Ks and 60 or 44 walks in 60 innings. I mean, that's not okay from a guy you're trying to see shut down games. I mean, that's where 7 losses comes from, right? You tack that on to 37 hits. That's way too many base runners, 81 base runners in 60 innings. Not to mention any potential inherited runs that he picked up throughout the season. Runners, sorry. That's concerning. So a home run's not too bad, but we know that with Reyes, like good heavy stuff down in the zone. But definitely stuff is there, but it's always been control with Reyes. That's always been the thing. So I'd like to see him tighten that up, especially out of the bullpen. There's no real excuse for it. I'd like to see that change. That's the one thing I need him to do moving forward.
Yeah, I'm with you. Oh, sorry, Ty. I was just replying to Roto Ronnie in the chat. I didn't realize that I replied as you, but or it looks like, I don't know what it is. Anyway, Roto Ronnie tagging us. And don't forget, you can join us when we do our live streams. We don't typically announce that we're doing this one on whatever night it is. Sunday night.
Sunday.
Don't even know when it is.
Fairly regular time for us on Sundays.
Yeah, Sunday nights we try to get together. Once hockey starts for me after Canadian Thanksgiving, we'll have to find a new night to get our recording in. But yeah, you're always welcome to join us, and then you can find us at Dingers Pod. Also, I wanted to recommend everybody go and get us subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can get these episodes. You can look at our faces. You don't have to, but you should look at the thumbnails that Ty puts together, because I will say, and I've said it to him before, so it's not patting his butt too much for a job well done, but job well done. They're amazing. They're the best in the industry. I know Michael Govier does some customized ones for, hey, it's Enrico Palazzo Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I didn't put all the emphasis in. Sorry, Govier, if you're listening, but do listen to that one. Very entertaining, good information.
I am very disappointed I did not get to see Govier on this weekend when he crossed the border. I was tied up between golf and the baseball game on Friday, and he was in Niagara. Would have been nice.
Oh, did he go to Niagara? Oh, okay.
Yeah, he came over and he did put it out and did mention us. So we do appreciate that, Michael. And there will be a day where we'll share good times, my friend. Yeah,
absolutely. Because I did say to him the first time he was coming up, he was looking to come closer to where we were, and I said, I'm off on my fishing trip. I'm off on my fish, so I wasn't able to do it. But I do need, and this goes out to anybody, or off topic, of course, but that's because the next guy we're going to talk about, we don't care about, but it's Wander Franco. But if anybody is in the States, Michigan area, and wants to bring a boat over for me, I'm interested. And Ty's he's got mother-in-law in-laws in the pontoon acquiring business. They're looking to get one. Ty, they're ridiculously cheap in Michigan. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Boats do not hold their value until they cross the border into Ontario.
The USD is better than the CAD. That's why.
I agree. But anyway, it's something I'm looking to do and see if Govier can, if he's willing to go and pick a boat up. And if anyone else listening, hit me up at Robbie Baseball 1 on Twitter. Pick up a boat in Michigan, drive it to me, cross the border. I can meet you on the other side of the border. I'm happy to give you Canadian beers, talk baseball, anything fun and exciting, because those boats so much cheaper. Anyway, Wander Franco, nobody really cares about him. 227 at bats. He's getting it together now. 278 average. Where's that OBP right now? OPS, sorry, just under 800. OBP 340. So the OBP is beautiful. Love to see that. Not stealing bases. That's going to have to be a 2022 and beyond thing for him. But at 20 years old to do what he's doing is awesome. Mm-hmm. It's great to see. We did not think it was going to happen this quickly. Those who did, you probably also thought it was going to happen last year. So I don't know that we're going to give you any credit for saying that, because there were lots of people arguing for it last year. You're probably the same people that thought Vidal Brujan was going to be the AL Rookie of the Year and Franco was going to be the MVP. But either way, it's good to see if you own him. I mean, people have been knocking your door down since you probably got him. And what a great get for you in Dynasty. I can't imagine anybody could acquire him. I wouldn't want to find out the cost this offseason to acquire him. But clearly you want to move forward with him. And the big thing he's got to do for you next year, he's got to add power and stolen bases. Like 7 home runs is great, but on pace for less than 20 in a full season.
Fun fact, Wander Franco has 2 brothers also named Wander Franco.
Franco. It's Franco, not Franco.
Franco.
I drafted one of them as a placeholder.
Is it Poutine or Poutine?
I'm now working. I have a French chef he runs the kitchen that I'm in, and Poutine is one of his favorite things, and he is French from Quebec. So I'm sure he's not
good with
listening
either
yet.
Pronunciation. I'm not going to say Poutine, but I appreciate that it might be the right way to say it. But anyway, the big flag for me, it's the only flag I have for Franco, and I don't think it'll be a long-term one. I just wasn't ready to anoint him as good as, say, a Tatis.
Right.
It's
Game
the
changing
power.
player.
Yeah, I just don't think the power's there. He's a very, very, very good baseball player. I'm not sure that he is the godsend to fantasy baseball. Those are different things. And I think he's going to be great for a long time. And I do think he's going to be a top 100 player. I just don't know that he's going to be a top 15 or a top 10 or a top 5 like he's being anointed. So I'm staying there until he proves me wrong. But if this guy drops the power and finds 30 bombs, he's an elite player.
Yeah, he'll jump up.
Yeah.
He'll
But
jump up. Now
but he will be elite if he gets that high though.
Yes, he also needs to be able to provide you with the stolen bases in your 5x5 formats, and obviously the OBP is there right now in your larger formats or OBP leagues where
I'm not as worried about the stolen bases, to be honest. Like I don't think that's his game. I think he is going to be.
If the power doesn't come, he's going to need that. That's what I'm saying. If he's not going to be a 25 plus guy, he's going to need to be on the dinger side. He's going to need to be a 15 plus stolen. He's going to need to be Andrew McCutchen.
I'm down for that.
In order to be seen as one of those guys. So we'll go a little faster here because we're at an hour 20 plus here, Ty. But Akil Baddoo, for me, he's had a perfectly good season, 250 batting average, OPS a little under 800 at 780 right now. But the power hasn't been consistent. He's got 12 dingers for the year. I'd like to see him hit a couple in September. I'd like to see him continue to get good playing time. And then he's a regular MLB outfielder come 2022.
I don't need to see anything from Baddoo. Kudos to you calling this one in our Rule 5 episode. You were all over Baddoo. This was your guy, probably, of all the Rule 5 picks. And so kudos on that call because he's been excellent. He's done exactly what you wanted. Gives Detroit a long-term outfielder, which they desperately need. So that's a great play. I don't think he needs to do anything rest of the season. I think he's in that Arizona conversation where we should see a small recoil next year. But long-term, good player.
Yeah, the only reason I'm saying a little bit more of the pop is I just want to make sure he doesn't fall off. I want to just see him continue to do it. So if he gets 15 plus home runs, I'm happy this year.
I live in reality. Sorry, I just want to make this point. Just if for anybody that's hanging in for the playoff run here, like I'm sitting Baddoo the rest of season, like just from an at-bats total perspective, like I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to help you win a championship. So if you're rolling him out there, I think that's a mistake.
That's fair. He's certainly going to need to get on a roll. And I do have him in a few dynasty leagues, a roto keeper as well. And I can't remember if he's been one of the guys I've been moving in and out of my lineup based on what's happening. So next guy up is Louise Robert. We weren't sure what was going to happen with him this year. Even in my TGFBI league, Ty, that's the industry league that, a whole bunch of fantasy nut jobs and industry people went into, over 400. I had Louise Robert. He got hurt. I was told he was going to be out for the year. I had a bunch of other injuries. I cut him. I had also cut Kyle Lewis, and then I got Kyle Lewis back, and I didn't get Robert back. And Robert came back, and my God, he's been lightning. 343 average, 934 OPS. He's been great. Louise Robert is a superstar, and he's 23 years old, and I think we need to treat him like that, and that's how I feel about him. I think that's that's
nothing
agreeable,
else needs
right?
to be said. Superstar. I agree.
Yeah, Drew Rasmussen. If you listen to the episode with Reese White that we did in the summer, talking about the draft from 2018, he was one of the guys that I kind of centered around because there was a lot of information about Tampa Bay having drafted him before and not signing, and then being, with Milwaukee traded. And clearly Tampa Bay is getting what they want out of Drew Rasmussen. Now he is starting for them. He's really honing it in, right? This guy's only 25 years old, was not at all owned. Like a 20-team league that I'm in, Ty, where as soon as a player comes up, they are immediately scooped up. You can put him on the roster like that moment. He was available to me to take this off season, and I wasn't too sure about it, so I waited into the year. Boom, picked him up as soon as the news with Tampa Bay. Traded for him in a couple dynasty leagues because nobody gave a crap when he went to Tampa Bay, because they're not understanding that there's more to the story behind Tampa Bay acquisitions. And now he's pitching. It's good to see what he's doing. 3 ERA in Tampa in 16 games, 6 starts in that time. And when he was with Milwaukee, the ERA was 4.24. They've made him a better pitcher. They're going to continue to do so. Drew Rasmussen offseason target.
Surprise! Tampa Bay makes a pitcher better, right? We're all shocked, right? Rasmussen. We've talked about this in great detail. Anytime Tampa Bay trades for anyone, doesn't matter what position, pitcher, center fielder, who cares? You buy that player. They're very good at trades. They're the best in the business at trading. I'm like you. I had him as a throw-in in a lot of leagues, Rasmussen, this year in trades. So very happy to own him. But Elsa Hernandez is next on our list. Recently coming off the IL, was a guy that I had in our home league that I was very excited about. Missed almost all the season, but he's there now. 5 innings again today. 3 hits, 3 earned runs. Nothing really awful. Unfortunately, he gave up bombs to Freddie Galvis and Bryce Harper today. So you don't
couple
like
sluggers right there. Galvis.
Yeah, right. I mean, Galvis has 11, so it's not nothing considering he's been primarily kind of a backup on that team this year.
It is more than Wander Franco.
That is correct. Yeah. So take that, fantasy owners. But I agree. So I mean, Elser's for me, all he has to do is stay healthy, and you see a stretch of baseball from him. Stuff's there. The guy can pitch. He's going to be in the rotation, assuming he's healthy. I'd like to see him just start to establish himself. He's young. He's got a lot to prove. But the stuff's there. And this rotation is very, very, very good moving forward. Like next year, you're going to see Sixto, Alcantara, Elsa Hernandez, Edward Cabrera, Trevor Rogers. Yep, I'll take that.
And you've got Thompson, who's come up and done good things. There are guys there who fit the molds of an organizational foundation building guys. And that outfield, who we talked about before, they've got the outfield. Could be brighter days ahead in Miami. I mean, they were a playoff team last year, so let's not forget that in the bigger year.
That front office has made some very good moves, though. Some very good moves.
They sure have. So Mike Kistremski, who came out of nowhere with San Francisco. Ty, you were not a big fan of this last year, called it, a one and done. He seems to be kind of a power type bat, just over 20 dingers now. I mean, I wouldn't worry about him in your dynasty leagues. He will not be the reason you win or lose. There will be other factors, no matter the scenario, because Yastrzemski is not a game changer. Agree?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I missed on this one. 21 home runs, 217 batting average, 744 OPS, like nothing to write home about.
Yeah. Lindor, woof.
I think my comment is perfect for this one. Like, don't be the worst investment of Stephen Cohen's career. I think that's bang on for Francisco Lindor. I think there's still lots of talent here. Switch hitter. We've talked about this, and I hang on to this one a lot. Like the first year in the new league is always bad. I expect some bounce back. Do I expect 30 home runs, 30 steals like we've seen from Lindor in the past? No. But I do think the power will only continue to increase. So I think we could see 35 home runs in the future from Lindor, but that will be with a recoil on the stolen base side. So that's what I'm thing out of Lindor in future years. And I do think this is a very good opportunity to buy him.
So that'll be something to look at in the offseason. One of the things that I like to do when we count, whether it's 5x5 or 8x8, when you get into home run as a counting stat, you get into stolen bases as a counting stat. I like to pool those two together, very much like I like to if you also include strikeouts and walks. And I like to see when you average them out, what's the difference between how often they strike out versus the walk, and can I afford to have a team filled with guys who are constantly going to have me losing strikeouts every week, or do I try to get a team that can put me in the mix? Stolen bases and home runs, very much the same thing. If Lindor could provide you with 35 dingers and 15 stolen bases, you could just as well consider that to be 25 and 25 if your team is leveled. But if he needs to be your stolen base guy, as he could be for some people now, you're going to find yourself disappointed in the future. Michael Conforto, speaking of disappointed in the future or present, 28 years old. My God, what a crappy year he's had. And after last year, when he, 322 average in that brief period of time, the shortened season, 927 OPS, oh my God, just falling on his face. What do you think of Conforto, Ty? You've got good news.
I think he has to have played the first half of the season hurt. Like that's the only like to be that far off from what we've seen over a longer sample just seems weird to me. I think there was something going on. He's been the 90th best player in the last month in 8x8. So he's a pending free agent, left-handed stick. Like I think there's gonna be lots of teams looking or interested in Michael Conforto. There's a baseball player here still. So I think same applies for fantasy. Go buy Conforto. Like he's never been less valuable. I shouldn't say never, but he hasn't been this cheap in the last 30 seasons. So
Okay, that's
go
fair.
buy him, especially in deeper leagues. He will pay massive dividends in deeper leagues.
I will sell him where I do have him. I could only think of one league off the top of my head where I've got him, and my outfield sucks. But
If I'm in that league, give me a call.
You're not. You're not. I think it's actually the league that I tried. It's the only league I've tried to do a full teardown and rebuild in, and I'm 3 years into it, and it's very frustrating. And it's one of the reasons why I am so against a total rebuild, where you try it with prospects and waiver wires, because basically my team is now made up of waiver wire guys and prospects, and as the prospects churn and burn, I can't get anything for them in trade value. And we've also got teams that are stacked beyond belief because it's a keep forever. And when you have rosters that turn over, you have those owners that don't care as much or they get taken advantage of. And there's like 8 teams in that league that are just stacked.
See, I have a beautiful rebuild going in one of our leagues, Robbie, and you know which league I'm talking about. It is
the
what I have,
Dynasty League.
What I have built in that teardown is glorious. I'm so excited for that roster to mature.
Well, I'm hoping that because of injuries this week and Giolito missing a start and whatnot that has happened to me, I'm hoping to sneak in a division title in that league. By the time this airs as a podcast, I should be in week 1 of the playoffs. So I've got some work to do for that one. But also somebody to rebound. Ty, you talked about him before, so I don't know how much we need to get into it. Goldie, not be old and keep stealing bases. That's your...
Yeah, but he's been
That's what you wrote.
Yeah, he's been elite down the stretch here, right? Like, he's 34th ranked in Yahoo 8x8 right now. He's 5th over the last month, right? So for all of you that fell asleep at the wheel, Goldie's still very good at baseball. And I told you this. I told you Goldie was still good at baseball.
It was the wily vet that got forgotten about, right? We've seen that a few times, even with your next guy. Roll into it. Roll into Machado.
Yeah, next guy's Machado, who I've kind of hinted at several times here so far today. Machado hits the ball very hard. He hits it hard at people. I've said this to you, Robbie, a lot offline, but I watch a lot of Padres games because I find their announcers extremely entertaining, and it's always the late game where there's less games on, so MLB TV makes that happen for me. And he hits so many balls ridiculously hard at people, or an outfielder makes a great play, or an infielder jumps up and catches one. He's so much better than his stat line. He has good at bats. This guy's just very good and underappreciated. He's hitting 280. I don't know what the bomb total's at sitting right now. I don't know if you have it in front of you, Robbie.
Oh, sorry. I just had it up. I'll pull it back up.
Yeah. So, but just, he's a good player. And the thing that always throws people off with Manny Machado is that they can't get through the first month of the season because he is a slow starter. 24 bombs this year. That's low for him, but still a very good season overall. And that's probably more to do with the fact that he's had a very inconsistent supporting cast this season in San Diego. Tatis being in and out is not helpful. And then that depth has just been very, very all over.
Well, and in the Tommy Pham versus Mitch Haniger, who will be better? It is currently Mitch Haniger because Tommy Pham had a hot streak and has not continued to plunge into.
I took a stab at that one. I lost, so it's okay.
Yeah, and anyone that was watching, I was doing a stabbing motion. I took a plunge into. Anyway, somebody with a similar kind of stat line actually to Manny Machado's Teoscar Hernandez, Ty, who you've got on the list here, also 24 dingers, 295 average, 851 OPS. Your note says he could be the power bat that wins you championships.
So as hot as Bo and Vlad are right now, like they're
so hot right now,
ridiculously hot right now. The one thing I've really liked about Teoscar this year is that he has taken what they're giving him, right? The Teoscar we got from Houston was all about home runs. And yes, he delivered probably more for your fantasy team, but his profile is a little bit different. The
He
power is
just hit
still
his 100th home run, career home run
correct.
tie over the
Yeah.
weekend.
His power is very real. It's not that didn't go away. What's different about Teoscar is he become a hitter. So when they play the shift and they throw him a slider away, instead of it rolling over to the shortstop, and then if it does back up, hitting it out of the ballpark, he's now saying, listen, I will take 4 of 5 base hits through the right side of the infield as opposed to the 1 in 20 home runs if I'm trying to hit that ball out of the park. And he's a better hitter. I would say the hit tool has doubled in value since we've had him in Toronto. The power numbers are still there, but he's just cashing runs. He's doing his job. He's cashing RBIs. He has the 3rd most since the All-Star break in the AL, and that's with him being ice cold in the last 10 days. So he was the AL Player of the Month or Player of the Week or whatever he was for a while there. He did some things well. He was good at baseball, then he's not good at baseball. So my note says he could win a new championship because I think that teams are going to pitch around the other two down the stretch here. And he had a couple big at-bats this weekend against Oakland and delivered. So that's what I'm expecting moving forward. He goes as those two go. And if they finish strong, he's the guy that everybody forgot about and will deliver down the stretch here.
Yeah, he's not the headliner, but he certainly is one of the guys that just gets it done. Trey Mancini gets it done with Baltimore. I cannot believe as the losses pile up, Ty, just how terrible Baltimore is yet again. But they've got individuals who are good fantasy assets. 21 dingers this year at Trey Mancini. Awesome just to know he's back. Should finish this year very close to an 80-80 season for runs and RBIs. He's in the mid-60s, late 60s for both. 66 RBIs, 68 runs. The strikeout to walk ratio is rough right now, 3-1, and it's a high percentage here. He's, where is he, 20-ish% strikeout rate, somewhere north of 20%. 263 average, just under a 780 OPS. Good player.
He just needs a
team.
Yeah, he just needs a better situation.
Yeah.
And I'm not entirely sure what his contract situation is because even Baseball Reference has him as signed through 2021, but a free agent in 2023. So I don't know what to make of that. He's got
an ARB year.
But it doesn't say anything. ARB eligible 22. Okay, it does say that. I take it back.
Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, so I think, he's got 1 year left. And like you said, it would be great if Baltimore traded him. For him, right? For him, it would be great if they traded him. And then, whatever's up with Mountcastle and the rest of that infield, and we'll see if they're going to actually turn bodies over. Somebody I wanted to hear your thoughts on is Tristan Mckenzie, because you don't like Tristan Mckenzie. I have fallen in like with him all over again, and I've been able to pick him up in dynasty leagues because people thought it wasn't coming together for him. And he's had a good stretch now, whatever. Injuries, but over the last month, 133 ERA, 30 Ks in 27 innings. What do you want to see from him in September that might help to change your mind dynasty-wise?
In our home league, I have so many injuries that I actually have rostered him in that league.
Yeah, I know. I laughed so hard when I saw that.
So I am just trying to fill holes. So what I want to see is pure dominance.
Dynamite.
I want to see nothing else because I need to ride this pony to a championship. That's what I need. What I'm expecting is him to run out of gas. If you look a little
did last year,
but if you look at some of the numbers here, they're concerning. The K rate is below league average. The hard hit rate is above league average. And so the combination of those two things is a guy that relies heavily on his fastball. Very concerning, right? So that's what I've always been concerned with him. But the injury on top of that moving forward scares me. So I'm not moving off of my long-term expectation here, but I will say that I do think we will see a strong finish here because his innings aren't high enough this year to be super concerned. And I think they're going to try to stretch him out. So I think even if he has some rougher outings, like if he's got 4 or 5 earned runs, I think you're going to see 6-7 innings because I think they want to stretch his inning count here.
Yeah, I definitely think he should not be one of the guys that sat the last 2 weeks. So if you do have him, To Ty's point, you got to watch what's going on as far as the performance rest of the season. But if he can not do what he did last year, which was obviously ran out of gas, was throwing softer and softer every start, that would be an awesome sign headed into 2022 when he should be on that opening day roster and pitching every 5th day. So Salvador Perez, Ty, you mentioned the potential for 50 home runs. What would that do for him? Great. Even more so than that. I mean, we were out on Salvi collectively. We didn't think he was going to come back like he had. We also thought when he had a decent 2020 that, well, could cash out, right? But it looks like he's in here for the long run. This is a new Salvador Perez.
He's just a big guy. I thought the injury was going to start to break down that
100%. It was just going to be the start of it, and it was unfortunate. That's not the case. So obviously he's juicing. I
will like to see whether Casey. I want to see if Casey moves him to first though, right? To stretch him out as a hitter, right? Because like if you leave that body behind the plate for the rest of his career, you're shortening his career by 5 years. Fact, not an if. Fact. But if you slide him to first, could have long-term
10 years
value.
left.
Yeah.
Because I think he's 30.
I do
now.
too. Yeah.
Anyway, and the last guy to talk about here is ya boy Yordan Alvarez with Houston. And fun fact for everybody who likes prospect talk, Houston's top prospect right now is a catcher. And that's sad, but the reason that I'm bringing that up is that Ty and I were talking about something that we're working on for off-season conversations about rankings and things like that. And the top rated catcher, as I said, from Houston through MLB.com. So we're working on a little system to help all the dynasty owners out there so that you can take advantage in your leagues, because that's what we're always trying to do. But this offseason, you'll be able to take advantage of your leagues by figuring out what your trade partner listens to, what they're trying to. Are they a Prospects Live guy? Are they MLB.com? Are they, I don't know, private sites? Are they checking out Razzball? Are they checking out RotoWire? Where are they going for their information? And how can you take advantage of what those writers are doing and who they're promoting that we think might not be in the best interest of you long-term? And how can you take advantage? Yordan Alvarez is one of those guys that a lot of people were talking smack about. I was jokingly saying that there's no way he could get through this year because you can't bring crutches to the plate. But, you know, it looks like he's okay in 442 at bats. Hey, Ty, what are your thoughts on Yordan long-term? Everybody should be eating crow on this. You do not need to, Ty, because you were telling people, but a lot of people said Alvarez is not going to have a career. There's going to be issues, blah, 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 blah. Well, here we are after 2020 being a disaster. 2021 is beautiful.
Now, I'm not ready to throw the tag I really want on him yet. I think he's elite. I'm a big believer. I think the hit tool for a guy with the power that he has might be the best in baseball, right? Like power hit tool combo, right? Like Soto, power hit tool, but power not as much for Soto. So add 20% to the power category, and that's what you get with Yordan. So Soto's the best at not chasing. Yordan's not that far behind him. And so that's the thing that I'm excited about. There's a really good hitter here that's a giant human that hits baseballs really hard. And so that's usually a very good combination for left-handed hitters. And he's 24, right? I think that's the part that people aren't really computing it, Robbie, right? Like that's the thing. Like this guy's not old. He's 24 and has 56 career major league home runs, right? So that's a good starting point. And oh, by the way, he's basically at that Bregman 700 at bat season. That's how many career at bats he has with those 56 home runs. So just think about that. When you put it into that context, like all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, this guy is really good at baseball. And so for me, I think given a healthy season, I think he's a top 10 fantasy asset. Like I firmly believe that. Healthy. Now, can he stay healthy? That I'm not willing to throw the tag on yet. But I do think position, if you get it, but I'm not worried about position. I really don't care. If you give me top 10 output, I care less. You can fucking play owner's box position. I don't care.
So Ty just described Shohei Ohtani.
How?
Because Ohtani is the fifth best hitter. Ohtani is the fifth best hitter.
Yeah, he's a lock for Silver Slugger.
And I agree. The DH between him and Cruz, it is him. But also, I can absolutely see wrapping it up with Ohtani MVP. But that's for another show. We went even longer than our last one, which I think was our longest. My goodness. If only I could do this with my wife.
But
wait, what?
Jeez. Oh man, there's a Giolito joke. There's a Giolito joke in there for sure. I'm gonna leave it though. But that's a great spot to leave. It's been another episode with Tyler Robb here on Dingers.